Good morning, good afternoon or good evening, wherever you might be watching. Let's look at a heap of handy tips in Excel, Word and PowerPoint. We'll look at Excel first. Now, the first tip will be using the keyboard combination of Control and Enter. I'm going to click into this cell and type the word cat. Now, if I just press the Enter key, as you know, the data will be accepted into the cell in which you typed, and then it automatically moves down the cell. To go back to that cell, I have to use my arrow keys, or in this case I'll click with my mouse and I'll delete the word cat, because what I want to do is type something into the cell but stay in that same cell. Hold down the Control key and press Enter. That remains now the active cell and the data has been accepted. So remember, Control Enter keeps you in the same cell. We'll delete the cat. The next tip, Control Home, always takes me back to cell A1, irrespective of where I am in the worksheet. Control End always takes me back to the very last cell in the worksheet that I had actually used. So in fact I had used something in that particular cell in this worksheet. Control End took me to it. Now the next tip involves a formula starting symbol. So if I click in this cell, I want to add these cells here. Now normally I would type an equal sign and then I might type sum, open a bracket, and I'll say add for me those cells that I have dragged through, close the bracket, Control Enter to stay in the same one, and sure enough it gives me the same the answer I required. But I'll delete that, and what if I use the plus symbol to start the formula? Just to prove that you don't always need the equal sign. So I'm going to say plus sum and then add those cells, close the bracket, Control Enter, gives me the answer. But this time Excel up here in the formula bar, as you'll notice, automatically added the equal sign, so I can start off with an equal sign in a formula or a plus sign. Either way, it doesn't really matter. Now let's go to another sheet, and this tip is extremely handy. You'll notice here that if I wanted to select those cells, then I could drag down, but what if I wanted to select cells that went hundreds of rows down? Often the case. There is a keyboard shortcut. I'll click back here, Control, Shift and the down arrow. That selects all the cells that have data in them. However, Control, Shift, down arrow will stop when it comes to an empty cell. For example, here, Control, Shift, down arrow, but it hasn't selected for me the balance of the information. So what I have to do now is to hold down the Control key and click in the first of the remaining cells, then Shift and down arrow. Control key down again, click in the first cell, Shift, down arrow. So there's a little bit of mind bending there. Most people have to practice that one a little bit to get the knack of it. But it's quite a handy little tip. Remember, Control, Shift, down arrow. So let's go back to the first worksheet, and you may or may not know that you can sum numbers, add numbers all at the one time by dragging through the cells in which you want the answer. Hold down the Control key, because I also want to include those cells in my auto sum formula. Remember, the Control key lets me select cells which are not adjacent, or as they're known as non-contiguous. So now I'll go to the Home tab and I'll click the Auto Sum button, and let's look what happens in those cells. Excel has automatically added for me the cells that I needed to add. So I can do them all at the one time. A very handy time saver. Now, let's say that I want to change this particular number to 20, Control Enter, and the cells that were dependent upon that number have changed. That was because whenever I click into a cell, I actually select the data in that cell. Now, let's say I want to edit the data in the cell. Well, that's fine. I can use the F2 key. So when I press F2, it puts me into edit mode in that particular cell. Now I can change it to, let's say, 35, Control Enter, and it's changed the cells which were involved. So remember, F2 edits, puts you into edit mode in the selected cell. Now, the thing that we often see, the symbol we often see in formulas is a $sign, and this is how it works. If I want to say that a commission rate of 8% is to be paid to the people who earn these sales, then what I can do is to click in the cell and type a formula, equals or plus, it doesn't matter, that cell multiplied by, that is the asterisk, that cell. And if I hit Control Enter, there is my commission, 8% of 34,000. But so that Excel always looks at the cell here in the formula, I need to go up to the formula bar, click on the cell that I wish to use in my formula, and when I press the F4 key, it automatically adds $signs before the column and the row reference. Now when I press Control Enter, I get the same answer here in the cell, but when I autofill down like that, it takes care of the multiplication of the various sales and the cells that go down. And the reason it does that is because, remember, we said multiply that cell by that cell. In this one we said multiply that cell by that cell again. So this time up in the formula bar I can see that the formula is continually referring to G16. Similarly, for the next one down, if I look in the formula bar, I see that the sales cell changes, but the commission rate cell, which is G16, remains the same, because I made that cell absolute by using the F4 key to add the $signs which make it absolute. Next tip, let's look at the quick access toolbar up here. Everything in this area, which I'm just going to put that down below the ribbon so we can see it here. This is the quick access toolbar, and when I click the drop arrow, I know that everything in this quick access toolbar is one click. By default, when you first have Excel loaded, you'll have a save button, the undo button and the redo button. I also see the drop arrow lets me add extra commands, so I always add a new command, because with one click I can add a brand new file. I'll close that, don't need it, file, close. I'll also add, for example, a print preview and print button, because now when I click on the print preview and print button, one click and it shows me the print preview. Back to the Home tab again. If you want to spell check something very quickly, you can add a spell check button to the quick access toolbar. You'll notice that I put the quick access toolbar there because I had clicked show below the ribbon. That has now become show above the ribbon. With the screen that I'm using here, if I click show above the ribbon, the quick access toolbar actually falls outside of the screen area that I'm capturing for this particular video. So there's a heap of handy Excel tips for you. Use them, practice them, and you'll find they're handy. Now, let's move on to the Word tips. Let's now look at our Word tips and tricks. The first one is probably one of the most handy tips I can show you in Word. It involves the use of the Shift and Enter key, particularly in bullet points, where I might want to add information to a bullet point, which is a paragraph. All bullet points are paragraphs, but I want to stay in the same bullet point but down the line and correctly aligned. What a lot of people do, let's say that at the end of this bullet point, the first bullet point, they want to insert by clicking there, and they want to insert some text below, but not as a bullet point. What most people do, they will press the Enter key, which gives a new bullet point, then they'll press the backspace key, and they'll use the space bar to line up with the line above, etc. And then they'll type their text, which might be careful, for example. So, which is fine. And then they'll continue on with the rest of the documentation. I'm just going to undo that last situation so that we get back to our original bullet point presentation, and this time I'm going to hold down the Shift key and press Enter. Shift and Enter keeps me in the same bullet point, but it lines up exactly for printing purposes and formatting purposes with the bullet point itself. So remember, Shift and Enter. I'll undo that last action as well. Now, irrespective of where you are in a document, be it a one-page document like this one, or a 500-page document, which might be a legal brief, or a book you're writing, who knows what. Wherever you are, if you want to go right back to the very start, it's the same tip as we looked at in Excel. Control Home, and wherever you are in the document, you'll be taken right back to the very start. Control End, again as it was in Excel, takes me to the very end of the document. So you don't have to keep scrolling down to go to the end. Remember, just Control End. Now, if I'm in a line, I'll just go Control Home. If I'm in a line, let's say this one here, and I want to go to the very start of the line, I simply press the Home key. To the end of the line, I press the End key. You'll notice it doesn't take me to the end of the bullet point of the paragraph. Home and End take me to the start or end of lines. Now, how do I use page numbering? Well, I need to go into the Insert tab, and here in the header and footer group I see page number, and when I click the drop arrow in page number, I'm given various options as to what I can do as to where I want the page number. I want my page numbers at the top of the page, so I'll click top of page. I'll choose the actual graphic itself, and there in the header is the page number. So I'll now close the header and footer, and there I see the page number up here in the top of the page. Now, as I said, this is a one-page document, so I'm going to go to the end of the document by hitting Control End, and I see that's where I am. But this time I'm going to see what Word does with the page numbering if I insert a blank page. And there on my new blank page is a page numbered 2. In other words, Word will automatically take care of the page numbering as we add new pages. Very, very handy indeed. I'll undo that last action. I don't want the new page, and I will Control Home. Now, there is a function key which enables me to find information very, very quickly in Word documents. It is the F5 key, and when I press F5, it enables me to go to various pages, sections, etc., bookmarks, but it will also allow me to find or replace a word. So I want to find the word exercises. I've already entered that particular word in. And now when I click Find Next, there it's highlighted the word that it found. Does it occur again? Find Next? No, it only occurs once in the document. Now, so what I could do there is to click OK, and this time I'll replace Find What, the word exercises, and I'll replace it with two words, and exercise. And when I click Replace, there it is. It has replaced the word exercise with an exercise. So very, very simple and very, very handy. We'll close that, and we'll now look at how to select information. Remember, the golden rule of all computing is select then do. What if I wanted to select the entire document? I don't have to drag down through it. I simply hold down the Control key and press A. Control A means select all, and from there I can now perhaps change the font size. We'll change the font size from 10 to 20. Hover my mouse, see how it looks. No, I'm quite happy with 10, so we'll leave it where it is. But I was able to select all of that text by Control A. Now, how do I select a paragraph? Remember, a paragraph is created when I press the Enter key, and the quickest way that I know to select a paragraph is to triple click in it. That selects that particular paragraph. And if I want to see where the Enter key was pressed, then in the Home tab, in the Paragraph group, I see the Show Hide button, which if I click on it, it shows me everywhere where I press the Enter key. It shows me a dot as to where I press the space bar, and it shows me a little arrow here as to which tab, whenever I press the Tab key. To turn them off, I simply click that button. So there I was able to select the paragraph by triple clicking in it. That's a very, very quick way to select a paragraph. I'll click away to deselect, and now if I want to select one word, then I can point in the middle of the word here and double click. That selects the word itself. That's nice and easy, and most people know that. But what can happen is that when I'm typing sentences, for example, this is a sentence, this is another sentence. Sentences, whoops, we'll right click and correct that. Sentences are delineated by full stops. Word knows that when you come to when it comes to a full stop, that's the end of the sentence. Now, to select a sentence, to format it, whatever I might want to do, most people start at the start of the sentence and they drag through, which is fine, except that if the sentence goes down onto the next page and you keep dragging, you can very easily lose control of what you have selected, because the pages sometimes flash up the screen very, very quickly. So I'm going to show you how to select sentences with the keyboard command Control, hold down the Control key and simply click somewhere in the sentence, and that will select the sentence for you. And as I mentioned earlier, the advantage of that is to enable you to select a sentence which may continue down to other pages, to the next page particularly. So there are some very handy word tips for you. Let's look now at some PowerPoint tips, and I know that you'll find those handy as well. Thank you for watching to this stage. Finally, in the tips and tricks, and the shortcuts, we'll look at some PowerPoint tips. I find these very handy. They save a lot of time and involve a couple of keyboard shortcuts that you may not be aware of. First of all, whenever I want to run a presentation, and this PowerPoint presentation has 3 very simple slides, and if I click on each slide I can see what's in them, and we're going to look at using the Format Painter button shortly in that one. But I'll go back to the original, to the first slide, and whenever I want to run a presentation to see how it's progressing, or even at the presentation itself, I generally press the F5 key, and the F5 key will run the presentation from the very first slide. Let's say, however, that I was working on this slide and I wanted to see how it would present. I don't press F5 because that will take me back to the very first slide to run the presentation. And remember that the slide I want to look at might be the 30th slide in a 50 slide presentation. Not unusual. So I don't want to go back to the first slide and then have to go through all of the other slides until I get to this particular one. So all I need to do is hold down the Shift key and press F5, and there it takes me to the slide that I'm working on. So press Escape to get back to the presentation itself. Remember, F5 takes you to the very first slide in the presentation. Shift F5 takes you to the selected slide. Now in the selected slide I'm going to look at the button in the Home tab called the Format Painter. Now I know that if I make this particular text, I'm going to double click on it, I'll make that text red and bold. I'll also make it italics and I'll underline it at the same time. So I've got 4 formatting features there. Now the next text, I'll choose a blue. That one there will be fine. A green. That one there will be fine. And this one, I want to use the Format Painter button to copy the formatting from this one. So what I do, I can double click on that one, and when I click once on the Format Painter button, I can choose to copy the formatting to other text once. So remember, one click lets me copy the formatting once. I'll undo the last action. I'll choose this one again, but this time I will double click on the Format Painter button, 2 clicks, and now I see that I can copy the formatting as many times as I wish. So remember, double clicking the Format Painter button, copy the formatting many times. One click on the Format Painter button, copy the formatting once. So thank you so much for watching. There'll be a lot more tips and tricks in the upcoming presentations on YouTube. Thank you for subscribing. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so, and you'll be automatically notified in your email of when I upload further lessons. Again, thank you for watching. See you next time.